Sorcery by Entrails, a murder mystery in the Deep South by G.B.Cook. Chapter 1. The body hung upside down, right on the front porch. The throat had been cut, and blood slowly dripped onto the old weathered gray floor. The puddle dried long ago, with only the most recent droplets now moist. A trail of it made a thin stream over the front of the porch and down the steps, indicating the body bled out slowly. Flies were abundant. The remains had been there quite some time before Sara arrived on the scene. She stood in front of the house in the sweltering heat, as she viewed what was once a living thing. She observed from a distance, waiting and watching, as crime scene investigators went through their tasks. She was looking for a familiar face in the swarm of law enforcement mulling about, but so far none. The driveway into the property was merely two worn paths in the dirt. Weeds grew between the tracks leading up to an old, abandoned plantation home. Spanish moss-covered trees were everywhere, giving the property an ominous vibe that Sara couldn't quite shake. The place was falling apart slowly, being taken over by the forest. The surrounding area near the house was now littered with black government-issued SUVs with tinted windows, silently advertising a major criminal event happened here. Sara felt odd waiting for an invitation to join the crime scene, but she wasn't FBI. She had been invited down to Greenville, Louisiana yesterday by Special Agent Girard to help him with the case. She hadn't heard from him again until about an hour ago when she got the call. All he said was to join him here at this address. She had no idea what she was walking into. From the first impression, it was going to be messy. It still baffled her as to why a special agent would need her help. She was just a detective at this point. They did share a strong connection from their tainted past, however. After the situation in Chicago wrapped up with Lee and Deputy Inmate Kimball, she and Girard shared a few intimate visits together whenever he was able to get free for a night. The attraction was intense, as well as their feelings for one another. She felt excited to come on another FBI assignment. She was also secretly thrilled to have an opportunity to see him again. One of the agents approached her, thinking she was just a spectator. "You can't be here. This is a crime scene." He started to take her arm to lead her away before she could respond. "Stop it. Let go of me. Special Agent Girard requested me. I'm Detective Sara Ponte." She pulled up the corner of her shirt to show her badge. "Seriously?" he scoffed. "We don't need any detectives. Ma'am, we got it all under control." "Yeah, I can see you do by the rookies over there on the left side of the house completely contaminating the scene by puking in the bushes." The agent spun around to see one of the law enforcement officials vomiting in the bushes next to the porch. "Jesus Christ!" He gave her a look as if it was her fault before running over to see how much damage was done to the scene. Sara then noticed Girard coming around from the right side of the house and moving like he was on a mission. "She's with me," he announced as they walked past the agent in that superb order, giving tone that she adored. Sara gave the agent a snarky look, then walked away with Girard. He guided her up toward the front of the house where the last of the blood droplets were trying to solidify in the unrelenting heat. "It's a bad one, Sara. I'm really going to need your help on this. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you again, but since when does the FBI investigate things like this? That's not even human." "That? Oh no, that's not our body. The unsub must have practiced on the deer. Our bodies are out back. Come on." "Bodies? As in more than one?" He nodded and they shared a look. Girard led her around to the back of the property. As soon as they turned the corner, the stench of decomp ripe from the exorbitant heat overwhelmed her. "Oh my God!" She forced herself to swallow the bile that rose in her throat. Girard quickly handed her a tiny jar of menthol paste to rub under her nose and a mask. He looked at her and their eyes locked. "You're going to need both. Trust me." Sara did as she was told, then followed Girard up the back steps that led toward the kitchen. The rear porch had gobs of flesh and sections of intestine scattered all over everything. cardboard boxes holding who knows what were splattered with dried blood and dried stringy things that almost resembled leftover snakeskin after it had been shed. The boxes were stacked on either side of the entryway, along the porch rails. She wondered if they held human debris. One of the agents followed them up the back porch steps. It was his unfortunate job to collect the evidence for transport back to the lab. He was covered head to toe with protective covering, including goggles and a mask. Sara gave him a nod. She watched as he grabbed the first box nearest the steps. Something heavy inside rolled around, causing him to readjust his grip. She glanced up and saw another investigator taking pictures. He was the same one she saw puking in the bushes earlier. Sara wondered what she was walking into as she followed Girard through the back door. Adrenaline spiked, making her heart race. She could feel the sweat trickling down the middle of her back as they entered the kitchen. Several people in white cover-ups worked silently to scrape and gather every shred of evidence they could find. What kind of person would ever want to do this for a living? The thought bounced around in her head as she looked to one and then the other. She turned her focus back to the crime scene. Whatever happened here occurred quite a while ago. Dried blood smears covered the cabinet doors and countertop. Prints were being lifted from the cabinets using a latent print lifting tape. The white farmhouse-style sink still had fresh blood in it, kept moist by the frequent dripping of the faucet splashing in constant rhythm. A mound of intestines lay on the grooved surface which drained into the sink. Sara looked up at Girard standing beside her. He was watching her intently, but she didn't know why. "What are your first impressions, Sara?" I don't know what to think. I've never seen anything like this before. Try to see each element in its own setting. Don't think of it as having once been a person. We don't even know yet if the entrails are human. We cannot jump to conclusions about any of it at this point. "Why did you bring me here? What can I possibly add to your investigation?" she questioned, trying to read his expression. "I'm giving you experience, Sara. I want you to join the FBI. Join me. But in order to do that, I want to set you up to succeed. And this type of thing is step one." "Oh, well, I'm not sure I want that, but okay. I'm here. Let's do this." Girard led her forward toward the next room. She glanced at the stove as they moved past it. It was an old gas type with 2 pots of stagnant water left to evaporate on top. Something floated in the big one. He stopped and looked down at her, saying, "It only gets worse from here?" "Worse? Worse than all that?" She pointed back over her shoulder toward the kitchen. Girard nodded. She could tell he looked grim even under the mask. His piercing blue eyes were haunted by the crime scene, which did nothing for her confidence. She felt sick from the smell and the heat and all the adrenaline pumping through her. "Don't puke! Don't you dare puke!" her mind screamed, forcing her to swallow hard. She focused her thoughts as Girard instructed, departmentalizing everything, just like the boxes on the porch. Thoughts raced through her head. "Okay, we have a mutilated deer carcass hanging on the porch. We have a bunch of boxes holding God knows what, and a kitchen, which seems to be where the viscera were cut apart. But why? Why would anyone cut open internal organs? Bizarre." Girard entered the living room, which held a few pieces of very old furniture that the mice helped themselves to. Big holes were chewed into the cushions with the stuffing spewed out. An old braided rug still lay on the floor in front of the couch. Years of dirt and debris covered it, as well as dried, muddy shoe prints. Moving further into the house, they stood at the bottom of an open stairway. A trail of brown liquid had run down the middle of the steps, getting thicker the further up it went. They continued up the steps, but Girard stopped abruptly halfway up the stairway and pointed. He was coaching her to see the clues. "What does this tell you?" Sara noticed the flow pattern and responded, a little annoyed at feeling like a child. "Well, if I had to guess, I would say he cut the parts out upstairs and carried the pieces down to the kitchen." "Right." After a pause, he nodded and continued. "Okay, here we go. Up here's the main event, the room at the end of the hall." Another agent came out of the kill room and walked toward them as they reached the top of the stairs. He nodded to Girard and stopped to talk. "Girard, good to see you, man." He looked over his shoulder toward the killer's chosen area. "It's bad. One of the worst I've seen." Sara looked up at Girard, waiting for him to respond. He just nodded to the other agent, agreeing without saying a word. "This must be the detective you told me about, Ponte, right?" The question was directed at Girard, but Sara answered. "Yes, I'm Detective Sara Ponte." "Welcome to the FBI, Detective. This crime scene should tell you if you really want to be an agent or just a detective." She glared up at him and said, "Bring it on. Show me what we got." Girard smiled under his mask. "That's my girl." If you enjoyed this first chapter of Sorcery by Entrails, please like and subscribe and watch for more content to come. The book will be released January 2026 everywhere books are sold. Thank you for listening. Sincerely, G.B.Cook.